Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3 is not only undoubtedly the most highly praised Budokai game, but perhaps one of the best Dragon Ball Z games of all time. And not for the reasons that you might think. Releasing the following year from the controversial Budokai 2 in 2004, this game received much higher reviews than its predecessor and is often praised for the amount it did to improve upon it, beyond just graphics and presentation. Because of this, Budokai 3 often makes it into the top 5 or even top 3 rankings of best DBZ games of all time. I as well would agree with this statement, having not played the Budokai series since the late 2000s and always considering this to be a notch above the rest. But having recently played both of the previous entries, I came here with a clear mind and goal to take an in-depth look at why so many people love this game, how it improved upon the groundwork laid out in the earlier titles, and if it truly holds up as one of the best games that Dragon Ball has to offer. Also discussing the ins and outs of the game as a whole. Now, while I would love to just jump right into the campaign, I do have to quickly point out just a few aspects of the game that really stuck out to me. In terms of design, the menu does a great job at grabbing your attention. It features a majority of the cast, which are all squeezed into one tiny vehicle, a sight to see on its own, with Goku narrating a brief description of each of the playable modes.
Master your skills so no one can beat you.
It does continue the tradition of the previous entries, having 6 initial playable modes with a secret 7th mode that's only unlockable upon completion of the campaign. What does not follow that same format, however, is the story mode, Dragon Universe. Now, the story will start off at the fight with Raditz.
What?
Or wait, does it actually? Well, that depends. Upon entering Dragon Universe, you will immediately notice the major changes they've made here. While Budokai 2 tried to switch things up with its board game layout that allows you to incorporate side characters of your choice, 3 takes that even further beyond and creates 11 distinct story modes, each of them tailored to one specific character. You will also find that most of the other characters, which gives a grand total of 38, at the exclusion of fusions, can be obtained by completing specific battles with certain characters, although many will be only unlockable through exploration and very specific routes in a second playthrough, like Broly or Omega Shenron for instance. This is awesome, because you get to experience the Z story through each character's unique perspective, something that at least in many cases, aside from maybe Supersonic Warriors, we don't have the opportunity to do. The problem with this though is that the stories will only focus on the major battles of each character respectively. So that being said, some characters will have shorter and sometimes drastically short storylines, given they don't play as significant of a role in the story or maybe become irrelevant due to some major power scaling issues that DBZ is notorious for. Now, while I do want to discuss each of these stories in detail, for me to do that, I need to first discuss some of the massive upgrades. And to start, Budokai 3 adds a flight mechanic. No, not just mid-battle. Right off the bat, they give you the ability to fly freely around a brand new map, where you can choose to either explore various landscapes or simply just go to your next mission, which will always be located by a little red dot on the minimap. If you do choose to take your time progressing and explore a bit, you will unlock various items, ranging from new supers to support items, which can help you in different ways during battle. While this is not entirely necessary, because you will get many of your character's supers and transformations from simply progressing through the story, also unlocking them at more appropriate times as opposed to Budokai 2. There is still a plethora of other skills that will make it well worth your while, including supers that may only be relevant to characters who don't have their own story. Now, while on the topic of capsules, membership cards are a new addition to the game that can be located in a very similar way. These cards will have different tiers, ranging from green to the highest tier, black. These allow you to purchase higher tier capsules from the skill shop that you may not have found while exploring. But before you even ponder about purchasing these skills outside of your character's playthrough, Zenny must be obtained, which can also be located at random spots on the map. Moving on though, what would a Dragon Ball game be without the ability to collect Dragon Balls? In regard to these, there will always be 7 in every story, but only a set number are obtainable in each portion. So, to make this brief, if you finish an arc without finding them all, well, you are just out of luck. Time for a third playthrough, or a fourth. However, as difficult as this may sound, given the size of the map, these can be found pretty easily by first locating the Dragon Radar, which is in different locations in every story. But if 7 are collected upon the completion of the story, you will be granted 1 wish from Shenron, with a bit more variety than the previous game. All in all, I had a great time collecting these, and upon entering each new arc, I always made sure this was the first thing I did. Doing this led me to find many new capsules that I may not have come across otherwise. In certain situations while exploring, you will come across an unmarked location, either showing as 3 question marks, or sometimes it will be named like West City or Central City. These will oftentimes lead you to simply additional dialogue. There will always be some dialogue before a battle, but it's decent at best. There isn't any cutscenes, and in a way, it's even downgraded from Budokai 2, because their mouths don't even move. I will say though, if you do choose to search for these, some will not just explore more of the story, but also enhance it and add a bit of flair, introducing some really cool what-if scenarios, like Vegeta landing at the Kame house in the Saiyan saga, and doing a bit of flirting with Bulma, or Yamcha and Bulma breaking up. Coincidence? I doubt it. I can understand how some people would want proper cutscenes in the game, especially since we were lacking those again in Budokai 2, but personally, I know the story like the back of my freaking hand, so unless they're adding something vastly different to it, like Xenoverse for instance, I don't really care that much, although still, having the Buu Saga cutscenes would probably have been a nice touch. There are mini battles called battle points in most arcs, which you can find by exploring or by simply holding R1 to sense for an enemy's ki. These are usually mini bosses, but can also sometimes be a more interesting battle, like Metal Cooler in the Cell Saga, or Teen Gohan. Upon beating these, and other major battles in the story, you will acquire experience points, which can be used to level up each respective character. Each subsequent level will become increasingly harder to reach, requiring more experience points as you progress. But they reward you with 1 skill point per each increase in level. Now you could use these skill points to increase distinct stats, like health, ki, attack, guard, arts, ability, and calm. Upon research, I believe it increases the overall power of your character if you're fighting them as a calm in duel mode. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but regardless, I found it to be basically useless. Personally, I attributed most of my points to health and attack, then dispersed the rest of them more evenly across my less utilized stats. To sum up the level system here, I truly enjoyed it implemented in this game. Although Kakarot undoubtedly expanded upon this in so many ways, don't get me wrong, there is still something really charming about the simplicity of it all. And especially for its time, this was so cool. Another thing you will notice on your first playthrough is the changes they made to the combat. The combat system has leveled up so much, to the point where I was genuinely shocked at the improvements from Budokai 2. And I mean, yeah, for the most part, this still holds up today. You can now teleport by holding guard in the direction of your opponent as they're about to land a hit, or by knocking back your opponent and performing a teleport chain. which looks so badass. I couldn't get enough of it. Not only that, but you can also counter teleport when an enemy teleports, and then teleport on top of that. Yeah, it gets crazy at times, but trust me, these are so much fun to pull off. Now, aside from teleporting, you're also granted the ability to dodge, instead of just blocking or sidestepping, by tapping guard as a hit is about to land. And honestly, this looks and feels so smooth. I was genuinely really impressed here. In addition, beam struggles are also introduced here, and can be activated if two supers are triggered at the same time. Now, I'm usually not a huge fan of spinning the joystick until my palms bleed, but damn, these feel so much smoother than Budokai 2. Just make sure not to do it too close to the opponent. Aside from beam struggles, super attacks are very similar to the previous entry, where you can decide to either deliver them at the end of a lengthy combo, or just hit forward or backward circle. Although, word of advice, you do need to time these fairly well because the com will sidestep you frustratingly often. But in contrast, the ultimates get a major overhaul here. Beyond us are the days of maneuvering lengthy combos like forward square, triangle, triangle, forward square, circle. In place of that, we get arguably the most impactful change to the combat system, as well as unarguably the most controversial for its time. Hyper Mode and Dragon Rush. Hyper Mode is a temporary transformation that makes it so you perform special attacks. While in Hyper Mode, your ki will drastically deplete, but also freeze at wherever you entered it. Meaning that if you have one ki bar left, you can use a 5 ki bar attack, but you better be fast. This is why I recommend having max ki before using this mode, because you will miss some specials. Now, if the enemy is knocked back while in hyper mode, it will activate Dragon Rush, but the duration of this will be left up to chance. After the first combo, you will be prompted to choose one of the 4 shape buttons, and hope your opponent doesn't choose the same. If they do, however, your Dragon Rush will end prematurely. You will do this up to 3 times, each subsequent time losing the previous button you chose as an option, ultimately turning it from a 75% chance to only a 50-50 shot of it going in your favor. But if you are lucky enough to experience the entirety of Dragon Rush, you will finish with a devastating blow. On occasion, this will even grant you access to a character's ultimate, like Goku's Warp Kamehameha, or Vegeta's Final Flash. Now, I say this is the most impactful change to the combat because, well, it changes the entire dynamic of the fight. But, and this is a really thick but, after playing for hours on end, especially if you're playing for 100%, this Dragon Rush gets very, very repetitive, annoying, and tedious. It also doesn't help that everyone's Dragon Rush is nearly exactly the same. In the end, I found myself going, ugh, not again, when I accidentally pulled one of these off instead of an ultimate, which will happen more often than you think. Now, ultimates, on the other hand, are absolutely beautiful and much more rewarding in my opinion. Not only have the graphics improved on the previous game, but the method of getting an attack win is much less taxing. Instead of peeling off the skin of your palms by spinning the joystick, you are required to hit the X button when the meter is full, or at least as close to it as you can get, a total of 3 times. The person with the bar that's most full at the end will win, and assuming that's you, you will be rewarded with higher damage, and in many cases, an awesome destruction sequence, culminating in the entirety of the stage becoming the destroyed version of it, granting you a brand new landscape. Now, I really do love these destroyed landscapes because the sequences are so cool to see, and I also much prefer the new method of filling the meter over the joystick version. Some of my favorite are Goku's Spirit Bomb when in Super Saiyan, transitioning it to Super Dragon Fist, or my boy Trunks' Burning Slash, which is so damn clean. Now that we've discussed at least the majority of the gameplay, let's start to dive into the story modes. Now, I don't want to take too much time on this part because I don't typically cover the story details especially for DBZ, as it's the same story over and over again. But there are a significant amount of changes here in Budokai 3, so my strategy is as follows. I'll be deciding the best and worst stories the game has to offer, while explaining my reasoning for such. The other 9 I will touch on briefly, just for the sake of the length here. Anyway, that being said, coming in at my choice for the best campaign is, of course, Son Goku. Now that's probably a very obvious choice for some of you, but it was actually a bit more difficult than you might think, as second place has a very similar story, and I even like some of their combat better. But in the end, Goku's story is by far the most complex. Not only is it the longest, but you can also acquire well over a third of the game's roster just through this campaign alone. That's not even including the fusions and transformations that are unlocked here. Through Goku's playthrough, especially if it's your first, you will uncover many of the game's secrets and unlockables. And there is a lot here, spanning from Raditz through Kid Buu. But while that story is lengthy and great in itself, the second playthrough is what really did it for me. Many of these characters will have some sort of secret path on their second playthrough you can take that branch off from the main story and bring you to the what if or even movie/GT realm, adding a lot more variety and tons of replayability. And needless to say, Goku's is no exception. Not only will you have the ability to unlock an alternate ending by defeating Kid Buu with a spirit bomb, unlocking Oob, but upon a second playthrough, you can also unlock hidden characters like Bardock and even Kid Goku by traveling to Gohan's house after Raditz, but before Nappa. And if you know how Dragon Ball's story works, that's a very short period of time. You can also choose to fight Cooler and even Super Saiyan Vegeta in place of Frieza on the Namek arc, or even Broly and Omega Shenron, by completely bypassing the Kid Buu fight and taking an alternate route at the end of the story. But trust me, there are extremely specific measures you have to take to unlock this, and it is rather confusing at times. You will first have to stumble upon Hercule in the desert section at a very specific point in the story, only to continue to the Buu saga, fighting Buu with Vegito, who is absolutely incredible in this game, plays so smooth. I mean, look at those damn high kicks. Later, fighting Buu inside Buu, which is a freaking awesome stage, might I add. And then later finding out I unlocked a brand new route in the story. Now, if you do choose to take this route, this is where you'll come across some of the hardest battles that the game has to offer. And that being said, while Broly is an absolute god, and Kid Buu is still a straight freaking menace, Omega Shenron is definitely, without a doubt, the hardest battle that I personally had in Budokai 3. To begin, his health is in an entirely new range from what I had seen at the time, and his attacks will absolutely decimate you. Though Broly is of similar strength, and you even get the privilege of starting off with Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta here, the timer on this fusion is insanely low, like 15 seconds low, and Hyper Mode will deplete this even more rapidly. That being said, it is almost imperative that you hit him with a full power 100 times Big Bang Kamehameha to win. And even still, you will immediately regress to base form after this, having next to no supers in your arsenal, aside from Super Saiyan 4, which will be extremely hard to attain due to Omega never giving you a minute to charge up. Strategy is absolute key here for victory, and if you hope to unlock the ultimate bad guy. To sum this up, I absolutely love when games throw us a curveball like this, giving us what-if stories that make us discover new secrets and unlock new routes for our character to take, whatever they may be. And that is why Goku's is the most impactful and best story in the game for me. Now, while I do want to only mention the best and worst in the game, I do feel a necessity to briefly touch on the second best story in the game, as it is very similar: the Saiyan Prince Vegeta. First off, I haven't touched on this yet, but the soundtrack in Vegeta's story is absolutely so hype. It just fits his character so damn well. Otherwise, Vegeta's story is very much the same as Goku's, just with a few less unlockables here, and by a few I mean maybe like 10 less characters. But there are very similar side routes. For instance, you still get to fight Cooler and Broly. You just probably already unlocked them in Goku's story, and I'm not even entirely sure you can unlock them in Vegeta's story in the first place. Regardless, most characters, even those who don't have specific reasons for second story playthroughs, will still have some secrets to them, like Kid Gohan, where you can choose to fight Goku as the first battle in place of Piccolo, which unlocks Grandpa Gohan's house. One of my absolute favorite stages in the game. I said it once, I'll say it again, Grandpa Gohan's house is awesome. Or others like Krillin will have you play through the entirety of his story twice, but the second time around will grant you access to the Cell Saga, where otherwise, for some reason, his story will end at the Namek arc. Now real quick, I know Krillin kinda peaked in the Namek arc, but we gave Yamcha, freaking Yamcha, a Buu arc fight. Yamcha! I mean, remember when Krillin tried to stand up to Buu at the Lookout? This game was already reaching enough giving Oob a damn story mode. We couldn't just give Krillin that fight to top it off. I mean, come on, that sounds pretty reasonable. Or for characters like Piccolo, you can unlock Hercule by triggering a secret cutscene and then flying to West City directly after. Although it is worth mentioning, characters like Yamcha and Tien will have very straightforward and quick stories, due to them not having any major battles past the Saiyan arc. And Broly's, while a cool and fun addition, being entirely too easy, as you could simply demolish most of your opponents. At least that's pretty accurate. Now if you haven't already guessed, the worst story is none other than Oob. There's nothing wrong with Oob as a character, I quite like him actually, but the story is just so underwhelming. While you can find a lot of Majin Buu supers here, if you're into that character, all you do is fight Goku, Majin Buu, and then Goku again. He also doesn't have many attacks, and given that he's introduced in the very last episodes of the series, it seems nearly pointless to include him in this. It would have made a lot more sense if they included characters like Baby in the game to fight Maju. But that being said, I do appreciate them giving him some screen time and letting you play as a character that is otherwise not shown much outside of GT. Upon completion of a story, however, assuming you have simultaneously collected all 7 Dragon Balls, then Shenron will be summoned, granting you 1 wish out of 3. I will say I do like these options better than the previous game. Firstly, they are tailored to a specific character, so you'll get all 11 breakthroughs if playing through the stories. In fact, breakthroughs are the only ones here really worth getting, as they give you the ability to use every super the character has. And especially considering how important second playthroughs here are, I kind of abuse this. The other 2 options will typically be a skill or memories of the character, which, if I haven't explained yet, are the entire collection of character dialogue that reenact a scene or battle from the anime. I personally don't care for it, but I typically got them upon finishing a second playthrough, just to say I did. After doing this 10 or 11 times, or 30 if you're grinding like I was, you will unlock the 7th mode in the game, Dragon Arena, which, if you haven't guessed, can only be unlocked by completing every character's story. Aside from Kakarot! Dragon Arena, which will be narrated by Commander Red, a really cool touch, allows you to fight the entire roster with any character of your choice, and the enemies can be at whatever level you choose. But they won't all be available from the start. The more you level up, the stronger the enemies you fight will be. Now this is definitely the most efficient way to upgrade your character's stats, especially your favorites who aren't playable in Dragon Universe. You can even upgrade your Dragon Universe character much faster here as well. But perhaps the most important aspect of this mode is its plethora of unlockables, which are only obtainable through new additions to the franchise, called break-in events. Break-in events are randomly triggered when choosing a character to fight, meaning it can happen every second fight, or it could happen every 10th fight, obstructing the original opponent for a brand new one. Think Super Smash Bros. System for unlocking new characters. The only difference is every 5 levels or so will be a different skill. Let me explain. While highly limited, as you can only unlock Cyberman and Cell Jr. by completing one of these, specifically while fighting an opponent between levels 31 and 35, and 66 and 70 respectively. I actually quite like this format, and would love to see it return to a newer Dragon Ball game. That being said, I would have liked if they had more characters available for unlock here, aside from just these two bozos, but if you're 100%ing it, it's a must. And you also can unlock other important skills like We Got a Power, or Sparking, which actually increases your World Tournament prize money. Speaking of World Tournament, you can also unlock the Cell Games Tournament here, by beating Cell in a level 51 through 55 break-in. It's hard to reminisce on any Dragon Ball Z retro game without bringing up World Tournament, one of the best modes that Dragon Ball has ever brought to us, and this game is no exception, even allowing you to invite up to 8 of your friends to play, which was so fun back in the day. There will be 3 main difficulties, but only Novice is available from the start. To unlock the later 2, you must unlock a certain number of characters to fill the tournament, of course. Then beat the prior tournament difficulty, which will allow you to purchase it in the skill shop. You can also beat enemies by draining their HP as usual, or by ring out, by strategically positioning yourself near the edge of the ring, and timing your attacks well. Also, some of these matchups will even make for some really interesting what-if interactions.
Such a resemblance.
Upon winning Advanced, you will be granted the highest portion of prize money, and given the opportunity to fight in the Cell Games, assuming you unlocked it. Now the Cell Games is just like any other tournament, except there's no rules. So you can use, well, fusions. Fusions return again from Budokai 2, consisting of the same timed events the previous game did for Batara and Metamoran respectively. Although there are no what-if fusions, which is a real bummer. We do get some newly added fusions to the mix, like Super Saiyan 2 and Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, which have some awesome finishers. It is worth noting Absorption also returns here, which will transform Super Buu and grant them some attacks. I do like the previous game's version much better though, as I think there is more characters to absorb, although maybe I just got the same ones over and over again. Bad RNG. Now, when talking about all the modes, we cannot of course forget about Dueling, which allows you to fight against a comm, a friend, or again, watch 2 bots duke it out. Yikes. What I really want to talk about here is the stage selection, which, although missing Muscle Tower, do make a huge upgrade. It's difficult for me not to marvel over how beautiful some of these are, and I simply just love the art style. I kept changing my mind on which were my favorite, because I genuinely love all of them for different reasons. But my top 2, at least at this time, are Grandpa Gohan's house and Inside Buu. Grandpa Gohan's house brings me back so much nostalgic vibes and gives you that OG Dragon Ball feel. Fully equipped with Gohan's house, that classic terrain, and even a giant fish like Kid Goku caught in the first episode. Not to mention an awesome destructive environment sequence. Now the Inside Buu stage was so sick. They definitely did not need to add this here, but they did anyway, and I love them for it. It's just so unique, and I really like the feeling of being inside. You can also change the strength and difficulty of your duel opponents in option mode, where you can also change the settings, duel time, adjust the screen and sound, as well as manually save if you want to do that for some reason. The skill shop is where you go to spend Zenny you've collected through World Tournament or through Dragon Universe. You can also, interestingly enough, trade skills with a second player. Upon entering the skill shop, you will notice it is hosted by Launch this time, who will change from her good to her bad side at random. Also, this leads to some hilarious dialogue.
Don't be such a tightwad. Buy some more now.
You can find new supers, ultimates, skills, and items to help you during battle. And you can also edit them here to have them equipped to your character of choosing. Lastly, practice mode is similar to the previous game, as you will have 2 options, practice and training. Training, which is broken up into chapters, will teach you the basics and eventually some more advanced techniques as well. These will mostly follow Gohan as he ages, but will also include a few other characters in the later tutorials. I do definitely recommend doing some of these, as the new combat can be tricky to get acquainted with at first. Also, if you finish all the chapters here, you'll be granted a skill called Bibbidi's Pot. Always knew that guy was smoking something. But before we wrap up here, let's briefly discuss why this game was so good. Ahead of its time even. how it improved upon the groundwork laid out in earlier titles, if it still holds up as one of the best games that Dragon Ball has to offer, and if I personally enjoyed it. Well, let me just start by saying Budokai 3 absolutely blew my expectations out the water. I truly did not expect to be so captivated by this game and love it as much as I did. Even after completion of it, knowing I had to start the video, I did not want this game to be over. What made this game so good for me, personally, and I'm sure this holds true for a lot of you as well, is the explorability, giving you that taste of what flying around the world as a Z Warrior actually feels like, the drastically improved combat system, aside from Dragon Rush, of course, and the plethora of secrets that you can uncover, giving you more freedom than any DBZ game that came before it. In short, this game took what Budokai 1 did best and what Budokai 2 did best and combined them, giving you a near perfect Dragon Ball Z experience. The only things I have to criticize are Dragon Rush, which is really frustrating and repetitive at times, and also the fact the stories skip around so much, giving you no idea what's happening if you're new to the series. But that being said, the game is not perfect. Not many things are, but it is pretty damn close and a great attempt at a Dragon Ball Z game in 2004. And I loved it. I absolutely love this game. I'm going to play it again in probably 2 years or so. Let me know what you guys think. And if you haven't played this game yet, I highly, highly recommend it. Oh my god. That video took so long to make. I'm probably going to have to redo the script like 6 times. Not even sure if it's the final cut, but if you guys did appreciate that video, you liked it, you want to show some support, please do me a huge favor, subscribe, try and hit 1,000 by the end of the year. It's a reach, but I'm reaching for it. Also, give it a like. It helps get this video out to other viewers that might be interested in it. And leave a comment. Let me know what video you want to see next. And if you enjoyed the video and any comments you have, I try to read every single comment. Again, appreciate you guys so much. And yeah, until next time. Peace.
Oh, I get it. Well, when you've got to go, you've got to go.